support of the United States Embassy in Athens in collaboration with the International Propeller Club. It is true that our two countries have developed an even closer relationship in the last years, and maritime relationship continues to play a very important role in advancing not only our economic prosperity, but also our national security objectives, which at this particular time are very, very crucial. So I'm very happy to welcome Mrs. Shanna Dietz, Cultural Affairs Officer in the United States Embassy in Athens. Good afternoon. Mr. Elik Holmgren, the Economic Counselor in the United States Embassy in Athens. Dr. George Tzogopoulos, Senior Research Fellow at ELIAMEP. Mrs. Danae Bezantakou, General Secretary, International Propeller Club and CEO at the Navigator Shipping Consultants Limited. Good evening. Mrs. Dorothea Ioannou, Deputy Chief Operating Officer, Shipowners Claims Bureau, and Managers of American Steamship Owners Mutual Protection and Indemnity Association. Good afternoon. Mr. Christos Timagenis, he's the first Vice President in the International Propeller Club and partner at Timagenis Law Firm. And Mr. Stamatis Tsantanis, Chairman and CEO in Seanergy Maritime Holdings Corporation. Good afternoon. We will begin this discussion with the opening remarks, so I give the floor to Mrs. Shanna Dietz Surendra for her opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Kalispera se olus. Good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends. It's my pleasure today to welcome you all to the final discussion of the virtual lecture series on Greek-American economic relations and the future of the Greek economy, which is organized by ELIAMEP today and with the support of the U.S. Embassy in Athens. My name is Shanna Dietz Surendra. I'm the Cultural Affairs Officer at the Embassy. Thank you for joining us today for this discussion on what is a very timely topic, U.S.-Greece collaboration in the shipping industry. On behalf of the U.S. Embassy in Athens, I would like to start by thanking ELIAMEP President, Professor Tsoukalis, ELIAMEP Director General, Professor Pagoulatos, and the entire ELIAMEP team for partnering with us on this important initiative. Special thanks also to George Tzogopoulos, Senior Research Fellow at ELIAMEP, who is the lead researcher and academic partner on this particular project. The U.S. Embassy is proud to join forces with ELIAMEP, a top Greek think tank and research institute, to highlight and exchange views on some of the most pressing regional and international policies and developments that our countries face together. And of course, I would like to thank the distinguished speakers today for sharing their perspectives with us as well. Special thanks also to the Propeller Club, a long-standing and close partner of the Embassy, for your collaboration and thoughtful contributions to the event today. Through this series of online discussions that ELIAMEP has hosted over the last few months in collaboration with prominent partners, we've had the opportunity to highlight the scope of U.S. investments in Greece and their importance in supporting the recovery of the Greek economy. The timing of this initiative is also very important. We've reached a moment in which Greek and American perspectives and interests in this region overlap almost 100%. We have a common vision in terms of building peace, prosperity, and stability in the region, governed by international law. Both countries are aligned on so many important issues, including our agendas for economic recovery, our emphasis on combating climate change, advancing renewable energy, promoting the digital economy, and transforming Greece into the technology and innovation hub of Southeast Europe. We also continue to pursue traditional areas of collaboration, regional cooperation, defense and security, law enforcement and counterterrorism, trade and investment, energy, education, and culture, all of which are a part of our annual strategic dialogue that took place last fall in the United States. This close collaboration is also reflected in the investment agenda. We now have major US companies like Pfizer, Cisco, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Deloitte expanding their footprints here in Greece, reversing the country's brain drain, and training the next generation of Greek young business leaders. Greece has become the Southeast European hub for these top-tier American companies. Furthermore, as the US and Greek relationship is in such a strong place, new opportunities for collaboration are emerging in the shipping industry as well. such as the Onyx investment in reviving the Syros shipyards. So it's no surprise that American companies like Onyx and Cisco are committed to genuine and mutually beneficial partnerships with local communities while providing the best in American environmental stewardship and innovative technologies. We at the Embassy are proud that the American companies and the US government are playing such a central role in helping to reinvigorate Greece's shipbuilding industry, which has been central to Greek identity since the early days. Just as that ancient maritime technology changed the course of Western history, we're confident that these next generation digital technologies will revolutionize modern Greek shipping as well. So we hope that through discussions like this one today, we will be able to identify ways to further strengthen and expand collaboration and exchanges between US and Greek investment ecosystems, and to promote synergies and partnerships between US and Greek companies and businesses in crucial sectors like this one. So on behalf of the US Embassy, we are very excited for today's panel discussion, and thank you again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear Mr. Holmgren, the Economic Counselor in the United States Embassy in Athens. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I feel like we should hire Shanna because she kind of did the whole econ. If you want a job in econ, it's yours, Shanna. A couple other just quick points. As mentioned, the U.S. industry and then we as an economic section are very, very interested in this sector for a lot of reasons. Some are on the commercial and security side. And then we see kind of the next 2 decades will be some of the most sensitive for the shipping industry. We think Greece is extremely well positioned, not only to maintain, but improve its already important global role in the sector. That we have had some success, Ambassador Pyatt, in his 5-year tenure, attracting attention from American companies, especially in the tech sector that Shanna mentioned. And we think there's some potential real synergies there with Greece becoming a leader in tech, thanks to smart government reforms and U.S. companies willing to invest. There are some really interesting and potentially exciting implications for the shipping industry as the shipping industry transforms into a greener, a greener fleet. Finally, Shanna brought up the revitalization of Greece's traditional shipyards and ports. This is something we are intimately involved in, obviously, with the aforementioned Onyx, but we view it as critical that there are other options out there as China take over. They're looking to take in the next, I think, 10 years, about 90% of port operations and shipping operations or shipbuilding. And we think that's it's not only an economic issue, but it's a strategic one as well. I know that our section and our embassy has historically had great relations with the Propeller Club and people in the shipping industry. I'm relatively new here, but I look forward to working with everyone. Forward to hearing insights on the rest of this call. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Dr. Tzogopoulos, it's your turn now for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Odin. Thank you, Shanna and Eric, for the warm remarks about ELIAMEP. I'm George Tzogopoulos, Senior Fellow at ELIAMEP, and I welcome all of you to the last discussion of our joint program supported by the American Embassy in Athens, which I want to sincerely thank for its excellent support over the previous months. What we tried to do all together since last April was to organize several discussions which are coming to an end today. And if I could remind the topics, they focused on energy developments in northern Greece, on innovation in Thessaloniki, on transatlantic cooperation on trade and technology, on technological and innovation cooperation between our two countries. And we are coming to an end today with a much expected discussion about maritime cooperation between Greece and the United States. This is a multidimensional coverage of several aspects of this bilateral cooperation. And we are very happy that we have managed to offer a wide range of issues, inviting several experts, analysts, and politicians who have offered their wisdom and expertise with the Greek audience. And the organization of the 5 online discussions will conclude with the publication of a report, which I will author, that will highlight exactly the contribution of American investments to the Greek economy, as well as perspectives about the future. I would like also to finish once again by thanking the American Embassy for the excellent support. And if I could highlight 3 elements on how I have seen this cooperation over the last months, I would focus on 3 characteristics. The first is the very good planning and the systematic action, which have been crucial for us to implement this research and education program. The third is the prospects about the future. It's great, especially for me as a relatively young person, to see that other young Greeks can look at the American investments not only from the perspective of geopolitics or geoeconomics, but also from the prism on how they can contribute to the improvement of their living conditions, either by bringing them back to Greece or by contributing in order for them to stay in the country under very difficult circumstances. And the third element is that of continuity. If you can also allow me to offer an emotional dimension about this cooperation. There are 3 years since I have completed my IVLP program, and I'm very glad and honored to see how this cooperation with the American Embassy can continue, and especially the involvement of IVLP scholars in this education program is indicative of how this program also is aiming at offering a continuation in this cooperation. I want to welcome and thank all the distinguished guests who will analyze the theme of shipping collaboration between Greece and the United States today. My particular thanks also go to Danae for her kind support in organizing this online discussion, and obviously to the Propeller Club that has agreed to co-organize this event that will follow. Thank you, Odin, and I wish you a very good success in the talk that will follow.
Thank you very much, George. And it was those things that you said made us so optimistic about the future, although we live in bleak times, but we can be optimistic. So I will begin with Mrs. Danae Bezantakou. Danae, the floor is yours to explain to us a little bit about what is happening, what you are doing, and how that is very good for the Greek-American relations and for our shipping.
Thank you very much also for having me here, and ELIAMEP, and George Tzogopoulos, of course, George Pagoulatou, Mr. Tsoukoulis, and Odin, and Mariana for all your help. Before starting, what I have to say is that today is a special day. It's the 22nd of February, 2022. So this day will happen again after 1,000 years. I'm sure that shipping will still be here. We will not be here. But it's important that we are together in such a historical day of course, speaking about the US-Greek relationships, because we are in our best, in the best part ever of these relationships. And I would like to say that I'm CEO of Navigator Shipping Consultants and concept founder of Yes Forum, the platform of open dialogue between young people and shipping. And also president of I4U, a Greek mentoring network. I have been twice IVLP in 2011 and 2017. And after my programs in the State Department, I created, after the first one, the I4U for empowering small and medium women entrepreneurs. And then I was part of the Alumni Associations program, because I'm also president of the Hellenic US Alumni Association that has been established in Greece after 70 years. Shipping and US, long story, many years since, liberties I will not go to the details of this, but it's very, very important whenever somebody wants to read about the history, to see the history of liberties. Of course, we are very happy to have a liberty down in Piraeus. And this is also in the Greek shippingmiracle.org that you can see the history for this project, which was very, very important to start with. And the Greek Shipowners had great collaboration with US government. Then a few numbers on the Greek shipping. Greek shipping controls 20% of the worldwide trade, although we're only 0.15% of the worldwide population, and 60% of the European trading, with young modern fleet that we are let's say we're building new vessels every year. And one more thing that is very important is that we are the only country that has not created shipping from governmental money. And also that we have been until last year the only non-Asian country in the top 5. So it's very, very important what Greece is doing worldwide, with around 5,000 vessels and 3,000 shipping companies of the Maritime cluster in just 40 kilometers. So we're really talking for a worldwide shipping miracle and not only the Greek shipping miracle. At this point, we can also see that Navigator is representing port agents and towing companies worldwide. We're very happy that we represent 2 of the biggest towing companies in the US, Moran Towing in the East Coast and Force Maritime in the West Coast, the last 30 years. And we have seen that the Greek shipowners are, their vessels are calling more and more. I mean, the trading to US is increasing the last years because of the new projects. And also, we also see as members of the Maritime cluster that the service providers are having more relationship with the US. The ports development, the logistics, the energy projects, and all the US companies that they're investing in Greece. We're also organizing a shipping forum, Navigators, the Shipping Decision Makers Forum, that in 2017, Ambassador Pyatt announced the project of Onyx. And also in our forum, it was a speaker for first time, a US ambassador in 2012, if I remember right, with Dan Smith. So to close my introductory remarks is that there is great prospect in the ports development, in logistics, in the energy, in technology, and also because there are great close relationships for many years, and from US to Greece and from Greece to the US.
Thank you, Danae. Thank you very much. And now, Mrs. Dorothea Ioannou, we're ready for your remarks.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the organizers for this wonderful invitation. As a Greek American, I can't think of anything that I'd like to talk about more than Greek American relations. And being a Greek American in the American Club, having run the Greek office for about 10 years, I can't think of anything more that I'd like to talk about. So the American Club and let's say marine insurance, P&I, and its connection and contribution in terms of investments and Greek and American economic transactions. Let's talk a little bit about that. So first, I think we have to go into the historical context, and that would be, so what is the American P&I Club? What is a P&I Club? So the American Club is a mutual, nonprofit marine liability insurer, meaning third-party liability. So for example, the liabilities that a ship owner may have in the commercial operation. So if somebody gets hurt on the ship, if cargo damage occurs, if there is a collision, the liability towards the other ship, if there's oil pollution, if there's major casualties, if there's groundings, and there's environmental cleanup and things like that. Those are the kinds of things that we get involved in. the American Club is actually one of only 13 marine insurance third-party liability mutuals that exist in the world that altogether insure over 90% of the world's ocean-going fleet. So what does that mean ultimately? Ultimately, that means that we kind of underpin the flow of global trade, because so liability insurance is something very similar to your car liability insurance. You can't drive on the road unless you have evidence of insurance. So you can't sail and go from port to port unless you have this type of insurance. So we're actually very proud that we play that role within the industry. So historically for the American Club, originally it was born in 1917. It was born out of actually sanctions from the UK. And because all of a sudden during the First World War, the American ship owners found themselves without ability to insure for liabilities because of the Trading with the Enemies Act from the UK, the American ship owners banded together through a broker and created the American Club in 1917. So traditionally it started off as an American club. And it went like that for many, many decades until the 1990s, really, when it was taken over by new management through Shipowners Claims Bureau. And they took it at that time from a 3 million gross ton mutual to what is today about a 20 million gross ton mutual. And a large part of that had to do with the strategy of internationalization, and especially within the Greek shipping market. So today, almost half the tonnage is insured, has a connection to commercial management in Greece. And many of the members of staff actually on a global level have connections to Greece in their heritage, reflecting, of course, the know-how of shipping in the country. 8 of the 20 board members are also of Greek heritage, reflecting also the membership makeup. The managers have offices now, originally only in New York. Now they have offices in London, in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, in Houston, in Cyprus, and in Greece. The Greek office, I have to say, I was one of the founding hires in 2005, started out with 5 people. Today, it's 17 people, and very soon to become 19 people. So we're talking about almost quadruple of staffing from 2005 to today. And so what's the philosophy here, and what do we think really makes a difference? The philosophy is cultivating and investing in local talent. So originally, we only had claims adjusters, for example. But now we've expanded the staff in Greece to business development, to production. More recently, we've expanded into accounts and data analysis, and with plans to expand these departments. Now, I go back and forth between the 2 countries in New York and in Piraeus. And one of the things that I think is very important to think about is, Greece is the #1 shipping nation. Historically, though, and traditionally, though, it didn't have it wasn't the nucleus, let's say, of certain services like financial and insurance, okay, which mainly were based in New York and in London. And that has changed in marine insurance. It's changed over the last 20 years. The talent that you find now in this country is really second to none. And I think that's reflected in the way not only the American Club has been expanding, but also most of the P&I clubs. So, for example, a lot of the things that we do also are, even if we don't permanently hire people, we have a rolling internship program. So that goes to our philosophy of cultivating and investing in local talent. The American Club has also recently expanded in Europe in terms of licensing. And so the staffing is going to increase in that respect as well. And so there's a lot of history in shipping between the US and Greece, obviously. We like to think that we've contributed now to building on that platform. And we like to believe that we're going to continue to do so. So I think that it's very important to remember that there are a lot of different sectors in the shipping industry, and P&I, for example, being a very niche sector, a very specialized aspect of within the marine insurance world. The American Club, I think, has definitely played a big part of the developments of those relationships and building that platform. We're very, very happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Timagenis, we're ready for you.
Great, thank you. Let me just try and share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? I assume you can, right? Great.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for the very kind invitation on ELIAMEP side, and obviously the entire team from the U.S. Embassy, and of course in collaboration with the Propeller Club. So basically, I'm an attorney, attorney at the Piraeus Bar and also New York Bar. So, and also the first vice president of the Propeller Club. So basically, this brief introduction I've divided in two parts. One is a few words. The first part, a few words about the Propeller Club, and especially the Port of Piraeus branch where we belong. And the second part is a few examples of U.S.-Greece collaboration in the shipping industry from my legal practice, or even beyond that, from what we see day-to-day in shipping practice. So starting first with regards to the Propeller Club here, the Port of Piraeus, one thing we need to distinguish is the Propeller Club in the United States was founded in 1927. It's almost 100 years of existence of the headquarters, let's say, club, initially by marine professionals in New York. Today it has expanded to 14 ports in the United States and 30 throughout the world. One of these 30 is the Port of Piraeus, which was founded in 1935. It is actually the oldest active propeller club outside the United States, and in terms of membership, the second largest propeller club in the world. So in continuation to what the previous speakers actually said, it is really reflected on how strong the Propeller Club of Piraeus is because of the very strong maritime cluster here. Basically, we have a very broad but actually selective membership base. So it is usually by invitation, or when a member actually applies, the application is approved by our board. Right now, we have 600 active members, meaning members that regularly actually pay their fees and participate in events, whether online or physical events. It is an autonomous non-profit organization, an association under Greek Civil Code, and it's collectively controlled by 16 governors, or board of governors or board of directors, and who all of us contribute voluntarily our time, and we are elected once every 2 years. There's also a limit in the term a governor can participate in the board, which is 10 years. Now, basically, if I were to, in a few bullet points, explain what the Propeller Club is, I would say, number one, it's a business networking association. It really enhances the Greek maritime cluster in conjunction, of course, with the U.S. shipping industry as well. But broadly speaking, it really is a network, a business network for the Greek maritime cluster. Very importantly, it is a liaison between the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. Coast Guard on maritime matters. I will explain a little bit later as well about our hosting of the Amber Award ceremony. But really, we very often are called upon our members to assist in various matters that might relate to the U.S. Coast Guard for vessels approaching U.S. ports. Of course, we have a very strong fundraising and charity function. We provide donations for charitable purposes and also scholarship for educational purposes. And the fourth function is a social interaction. We organize various events, primarily around the shipping industry between Greek and American relations. So really, the Propeller Club is the example of a U.S.-Greece collaboration in, let's say, the commercial shipping sector. If I may pass now to part two briefly, it goes more to my wearing my hat, not necessarily as a Propeller Club governor and vice president, but more as a lawyer and as a maritime lawyer. I could also think of various heteroclite examples, basically, of U.S.-Greece collaboration on the commercial side. Now, a few of them are, and literally there are only a few of these examples, some were already mentioned, is shipping finance. Traditional shipping finance, may I say, is actually quite limited. We used to have more ship finance banks active in this sector. Now there's a limited number of banks, some major ones, Citibank, we've seen also more recently CIT participating in financings, but there are other Greek international banks that finance in the traditional way shipping. and what we would call a plain vanilla loan agreement. Interestingly enough, we see very active U.S. relationships when it comes to alternative sources of finance. It's been like 15 or 17 years ago when I was deciding my master's degrees, and after doing my first master's degrees in the UK, I could not have imagined how more useful it would be my second master's in the US, especially when it had to do with corporate law and capital markets. Since my return back to Greece, my cooperation with US colleagues in these fields has been very active, exactly because of the alternative source of ship finance that we see US companies being involved. Obviously, the number one would be US capital markets. We have numerous listed companies which are of Greek interest on New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. As a firm, we have been involved already since early 2005 onwards as firm for the first listing of a shipping company on NASDAQ, and several others since then. I will not say more about this because we have the expert on this, which is Mr. Tsantanis. So he's an example of a publicly listed shipping company controlled out of Greece and where the vessels are managed out of Greece. What I need to clarify only is that when we say US publicly listed companies, does not necessarily mean that the majority of the shareholders of these companies are Greek or Greek interest. A lot of these companies have a very broad shareholder base, and only the vessels are managed out of Greece. The operations of the vessels are managed out of Greece. Going back to Dorothea's point earlier, there's a lot of talent here in ship management, ship operation, which US investors are willing to invest in. And this is why we've seen, going to the third last bullet point in this PowerPoint, we've seen a lot of private equity firms that have partnered with Greek ship owners, either acquiring in conjunction with them or combining fleets, or even growing their own fleets, but trusting the management of their fleets to Greek shipping companies or companies basically based here in Greece. There have been examples also where a lot of US financial institutions have acquired shipping loans, assisting the Greek banks to get off their portfolios some of the problematic loans. On the other hand, they have been quite helpful in these funds in assisting the restructuring of these debt portfolios and eventually allowing the survival of the shipping company, which used to be initially a distressed borrower. There have been other examples of, let's say, New York law-governed high-yield bonds. So we have these type of financing as well, more structured, more complex products. There's no point in getting into too much detail right now, but this is really an array of alternative source of finance where US investors or US-based companies have been very important players over the past, I would say, 15 years, and more recently over the past 5-10 years. Another example, which was mentioned earlier by Shanna, was with regards to shipyards. I mean, Onyx is the example here, having completed already the Syros Island Neorion acquisition and having announced also the Lefsis shipyard acquisition in conjunction with the Fincantieri Group. May I move to a different type of let's say, example of cooperation, which does not necessarily relate only to commercial shipping, but actually there are types of commercial shipping. And this has to do with the Coast Guard Corporation. The main example, which going back to Propeller Club here, is Amber Award. Amber is a system organized by the US Coast Guard, worldwide system for search and rescue of persons in distress at sea. This is administered by the US Coast Guard, but a lot of authorities worldwide participating. In the case of Greece, it's the Greek Coast Guard. But the most important participants are actually the shipping companies and their vessels which participate. Greece, being the #1 player in commercial shipping, has a very large number of vessels participating. Every year, there are an award ceremony called the Greek Amber Award Ceremony, where the shipping companies in Greece are awarded participation awards in conjunction with the US Coast Guard, organized by the Propeller Club. So last year, we organized in December for 2020, the awards were 251 Greek-based shipping companies and 2,081 vessels participating in this program. The year before, it was 2,023 vessels. So we see a steady growing number of the Greek-controlled vessels participating in the AMVRA award program, which of course ties in with the increasing number of the Greek fleet, of the global commercial ocean-going Greek fleet. And the last example of cooperation between Greece and the US, before I close this brief presentation, has to do with an MOU that was recently signed between the Hellenic Coast Guard and the US Coast Guard. Incidentally, the signing was organized on the 14th of December 2021. It was the same day that the Propeller Club hosted its AMVRA Award annual ceremony. So whilst in the morning, the memorandum was signed officially by US and Greek government officials, in the evening during our event, we hosted an award ceremony as well, a small, let's say we devoted a small section of the ceremony to this MOU, where we see the two Coast Guards cooperating with each other. And this is also a breakthrough example of US-Greece collaboration in shipping. There are many more examples, and I'm happy to take some questions in the, after all presentations are completed. And of course, thank you so much once again for hosting this event.
Thank you very much, Mr. Timagenis. Now has come the time to hear Mrs. Tsantanis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Odin, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and big congratulations to organizing this event. I have a short presentation to discuss a little bit about Seanergy Maritime Holdings. We are a US listed company, and we have been listed on the NASDAQ stock exchange since 2008. On a personal basis, I must say that I have been participating in various deals in the US capital markets since 2000. And like the Timagenis law firm, I was a junior banker when I participated in the first Greek IPO, Greek interest shipping IPO on the New York Stock Exchange in March of 2001, and many, many more deals thereafter. So the US and New York in particular has been a great source of capital throughout my career. Having said that, I would like to discuss a little bit about Seanergy and who we are and what we do and how we are relevant to the US capital markets and the US in general. First of all, I must say that we are the only US listed shipping company with a pure play Cape-size fleet. That means that all of our vessels, all of our 17 vessels, consist of Cape-size ships. For those of you that are not familiar, Cape-size is the largest conventional dry bulk ship, which carries mainly iron ore and coal. We have very solid corporate governance and long-standing commercial relationships with a number of global charters. Most of them, actually, the most important ones are based in the United States. A few words about the company here with a quick infographic. I will not take much of your time discussing what we are and what we have achieved the last few years. I will start by saying that Seanergy has tapped the US capital markets for shipping throughout the last 5-6 years. We have raised more than $200 million of capital, equity capital, and only in the last 2 years we raised about $175 million. So 50% of our total acquisitions between 2015 and 2021 have been funded through capital that we have raised through the NASDAQ stock exchange. We're very close with almost all the US major investment banks, all the bulge bracket firms, and many other smaller investment banks as well. And we have been close to US credit funds for financing. Actually, one of our lenders right now comes from the US in respect of lending, and it's not so common to see US credit funds lending on a bilateral format, but we have actually done this as well. And we have a big presence in the US in respect of our investor relations, our corporate legal counsel. And of course, we as well, when the health conditions allow, we travel to the US very frequently, at least 5 times a year. And we try to be in all the major conferences hosted in New York and other major financial centers. A few words about our investors profile. We have a very broad retail shareholding base in the US. The last time we counted, we have more than 40,000 US retail investors in Seanergy, 40,000, that's 40. So we have one of the biggest free floats right now from all the public shipping companies, and a huge retail base in the US as well. And we are being mentioned and named in a number of financial services as a company, since we are very active and we have a very strong daily volume on the stock exchange as well. So all the major news sources mention Seanergy a number of times on a daily and weekly basis. So we're very, very well covered by the US platforms of news and everything else. A brief countdown of what we have achieved the last 5-6 years. As I mentioned before, we have raised more than $200 million from the US capital market. So it has been a cornerstone contribution to the growth of the company and where we are today. On the commercial front, as I mentioned before, the fact that we operate larger ships, we don't have the flexibility to call in many US ports. However, we have done, out of the $10 million of trade annually, we have done 2 million metric tons of US trade the last 4 years, and that has been primarily with coal. And the main ports that we have called has been Baltimore. That has been a main export point from the US to the Far East. So we have been exporting a lot of coal from the US towards the Far East, to China, to South Korea, and to India. So we have been very, very active with Cape-size vessels loading in Baltimore and discharging in the Far East. As I mentioned before, we have very strong commercial partnerships in the US. And the most important one is with Cargill, which is a US-listed company as well, a US-based company as well, apologies. And we have right now 3 vessels with a minimum duration of 5 years. And these have been on a synthetic lease basis. So not only we have commercial agreements, but also there's financing and synthetic lease, which means that it's a very strong partnership with Cargill. At the same time, we have been pioneers with Cargill in developing and applying energy-saving devices on board the ships that we have been in partnership with. And one of the vessels that we have already completed that since 2019 has proven to reduce its carbon footprint by about 15%. That's a massive decrease of consumption and carbon footprint, with something that we have developed and agreed with Cargill. And we intend, and we have already started developing that project across the board on all of our fleet. So we have already a good track record in installing energy-saving devices with a US company like Cargill, which is a major participant. At the same time, we have major collaborations in the US. We have been very close with the American Bureau of Shipping and with the American Club as well in the past. And at the same time, we are providing a full scholarship in the Maritime, in Masters in Shipping with the ALBA Graduate School. And we have been in the advisory committee of the ALBA Graduate Business School, which is part of the American College of Greece. So we try to be as close to the American system and community as possible. Me personally, for about 20 years already, close to since 2001. So yes, more than 20 years. And as a company, as I mentioned before, both financially and commercially, the US is a very vital and strong partner in the day-to-day operations, commercial management, and the financing of the company. That being said, thank you very much for listening to our short presentation, and the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Well, all of you showed us that sky is the limit about this collaboration between the United States and Greece. We have US bidders in Alexandroupolis and Kavala port privatizations. We have Syro shipyards. We have so many things to look forward to. And I wanted to ask, it's a general question for all of you. Do you think that in your plans there is more, creating more works for the Greek people here? We heard Mrs. Ioannou saying that there are local people that can work. So, Greek people always thought that shipping is something that is outside Greece, outside Athens, outside Thessaloniki. It's more London and New York based. And of course that should be so. But in your plans, do you see creating more jobs for the Greeks in Greece? And also something else, we are going through the pandemic crisis and now the Ukraine crisis. How do you see that affecting shipping and US-Greek collaboration? Yes, Mr. Tsantanis.
Well, thank you. Very quickly, I must say that Seanergy, we have grown the office here in Greece a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. So from a staff of about 15 people a few years ago, now we're reaching 60 people. So every year we increase the size of the office and of course the size of our operations here in Greece. So we do employ a lot of Greek high quality professionals, and we think very highly of the DNA of shipping in Greece, which in my opinion, it's incomparable globally. As far as the Ukrainian crisis is concerned, since we operate, the majority of our officers are Ukrainian and some Russians, I must say that so far we have not seen any real disruptions in getting officers for our vessels. There are always alternative solutions to resolve that. Actually, one of our vessels a few days ago completed the loading in Taman, which is basically on the border of Russia and Ukraine. We didn't have any issues or incidents there. The vessel has sailed safely southbound right now. But so far we have not seen any disruptions. We are monitoring the situation and we're trying to have alternative to move our people to and from Ukraine when the time comes for crew changes or whatever else is needed. Thank you.
Mrs. Ioannou?
Yes, I can add a few things, at least from the insurance sector. As I mentioned earlier, actually we have been expanding, and interestingly, like I said, initially it was really only the claims consulting side and the claims adjusting side that we were investing in Greece. But over the last few years, we've realized that really we can do a lot more from Greece, and we trust the talent. And so we have expanded into almost all the departments. So now we have people that support the finance department in New York. We have people also in the Greek office doing that very same thing. So we are creating career paths on business development, on accounts and finance. So that obviously that can only continue. It's in very early stages, but like I said, we started 5 people and now we're almost at 20, and that will continue to grow. We've also expanded with the European license, and so we're going to be looking also. We will be looking to hire as well in Cyprus, and that will be further supported by greater staff in Greece as well. As far as, interesting, the whole issue of geopolitics, and obviously that will affect how we do business. So being an American entity, we have to be very, very careful in terms of the impact of, for example, sanctions that might come should things worsen in the region. We've had to deal with that in the past, obviously, with Iran, with Venezuela. So we are very, very in tune with that. We have a specialized department, actually, that's headed by a Greek American in New York, who goes back and forth. And so one of the things that we do very well is we stay on top of those developments, and we would obviously be giving advice to our members, because it's twofold how it affects what we do. It affects our ability to cover things depending on the impact of the restrictions that might be imposed on trade. And then obviously it impacts on the ability of our members to trade themselves. So there's like, it's a two-prong investigation that they would have to do to make sure that they are managing things appropriately. And that's on top of the complications generally of having an unstable area in managing crew and in managing trade. So obviously it definitely would have a serious impact on the American club and on its members. To the extent of how it will be affected, we probably can't project that right now. But one of the things that was being discussed recently, I mean, I don't know where we stand now, is, like I said, the potential imposition of sanctions, in which case that would definitely affect cover immediately, and it would definitely affect the ability of members to trade. So yeah, definitely every single incident, every single sort of development on the geopolitical platform in the world affects how we do business.
For me, what I can say, we start first from politics and then I will go to the young people, because I believe that the future is the young people, and politics will always be there, but they're old enough in order to give so much attention, but it's very important. I mean, Greece is in a very geopolitical, it's a very geopolitical country. I mean, in the center of geopolitics, and we see that also, you know, the relationships with our neighbor is not so great, and now Russia and Ukraine is coming to bring some more headaches, not to Greece, to Europe, because Greece is and will remain a member of the European Union. So yes, what I will say is that in shipping, we discuss a lot lately that it's a great need of brainstorming all together at the same table. Because here, I don't think that politics is the problem. The thing that concerns us, but the climate change. So it's great, you know, to talk about politics and what will happen, but it's very, very important to take care of the earth and to see the energy and the energy problem of what's happening, you know, as a serious problem to come. I agree. I mean, Dorothea and Stamatis, of course, fully covered me on what shipping believes. And now to the young people, we have to say and to bring out the message of how important it is for for Greek young people to return on board. We need to empower our shipping on board. We used to have 150,000 seafarers before 20 years, and now we're having only 15,000. So there is great opportunity for the young people. And, you know, shipping did not stop even for a day. So even pandemic did not stop shipping. So it's a great prospect for the young people to be in shipping. However, shipping is a 24/7, 365. It's not easy, we know, but it's a great opportunity. And if I can say, as I'm a concept founder of Yes Forum, and I'm also general secretary of Propeller Club, that we're also giving many scholarships to young people to help them. What I can say is that the young people that they are becoming volunteers while they are studying, they all find jobs before finishing the university. So they have to look for us. We are here and we will speak to them. And last, I want to say, because I heard before yesterday conference, and I have here some notes of what we want from the young people in shipping. What they have to do is progressive initiative, discrete work ethic, vision, 24/7, team players, be present to be helpful and ask questions, ready to learn, honesty, enthusiasm, out of the box, commitment, long-term commitment, but first of all, to love what they're doing. So we think that Greece is the best example of shipping worldwide, so why not to join us, because there is plenty of room there.
Timagenis.
Great, thank you, Ms. Linardatou. With regard to the first part of your question, it goes without saying that the more the Greek fleet grows, the more jobs it creates onshore and obviously on the vessels. Basically, we have examples even of ship owning companies that have nothing to do, they're beneficial owners with Greece, but because they realize there is talent here in ship operation, technical department, chartering, they want to establish branch offices here in Greece, especially in view of the favorable framework. So this creates direct jobs in shipping companies, and we see that all the time because we get calls in establishing branch offices or in expanding the lease of existing companies, and even in being involved in their employment contracts when it has to do with senior executives. In the legal now world, it's very interesting that Greece and international law firms, branches of the US or UK English law firms, only have branches in Greece with their main expertise being in the shipping sector. So you've even seen the legal sector, there is, which is a parallel support service to shipping. International law firms have been interested and have established branch offices here for the past 20, 30 years, at least 2-3 decades. They have been present here and their offices are very active. So definitely jobs are being created. Jobs are created also at sea. There is a big campaign increasing the number of seafarers. These are very highly paid jobs. Even in vessels flying foreign flags, a lot of Greek ship owners want to have a Greek captain to be able to communicate with an onshore captain, to be able to take care of their vessel. So jobs are being created in numerous ways, plus a lot of ship owners who actually generate funds from their shipping business, reinvest them in Greece in various other sectors like the hotel industry, real estate industry, renewable energies. So there are a lot of indirect ways where shipping and Greek shipping creates jobs. Now, going to your question about geopolitical changes, shipping is inevitably influenced by a lot of changes. As Dorothea mentioned, we have to be careful of our clients always with sanctions being involved, especially sanctions imposed by the US. No matter if they're Greek-based companies, because all the transactions, their charters clear through US dollars, their banks clear the transactions US dollars, it is inevitable to comply with US sanctions, and we always have clauses in the relevant documentation, whether loan agreements, joint ventures, other type of clauses, which need to cater for these sanctions, and these companies need to be compliant with such sanctions. So definitely it's influenced from the legal side, but there's also influence when it has to do with actual major geopolitical changes or even global changes. During the pandemic, for instance, the tanker industry at the beginning of the pandemic skyrocketed the charter rates because of the oil prices being very high and a lot of traders chartering tanker vessels to store in their tankers oil. So basically, it really is an industry that is run out of Greece, but geopolitical changes, not necessarily Greek local changes, are the ones that influence shipping. And this is why it's so great being in Greece, such a small country, but working in such an international environment. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And now I want to go to you, Mrs. Tsantanis, because Danae pointed very well, she has very right, about the climate change and the dangers from the climate change. And we have seen that you have many actions for energy efficient design in your ships. And I wanted to ask you about these actions. Are they too expensive? Is it something that you have to do so to protect the environment? And it's something that the shipping industry will follow your example?
Well, to answer your question with just one word, no, it's not expensive. There are two elements to that. First of all, we don't know what the future technology is going to bring as far as the ships are concerned. So it's the first time in the last 30 or 40 years that the conventional propulsion and possibly the fuel of the ships may change dramatically from 2030 onwards. So instead of, let's say, fuel oil or what have you, we may see completely different forms used as fuel for the ships. Until that happens and until there is a prevailing solution, which we don't really know how that 40 or 50 year of same technology changes. There are not so many things we can do. I mean, we're not really inventors ourselves. We do not have we're shipping companies, right? So we have to live with a very particular known and the technology. So until that happens, the only thing we can do is try and improve as much as we can the efficiency and the fuel consumption of the existing vessels. And that's something that we at Seanergy have started to do very successfully since 2016 with installation of remote performance monitoring systems, artificial intelligence that we have installed on all of our ships thereafter. And most importantly, since 2018-19, as I mentioned before, we have co-developed solutions, existing and known solutions, not like we didn't reinvent the wheel, but we found proven solutions that have actually reduced the fuel efficiency, have improved the fuel efficiency of the ships, and have reduced the carbon footprint of the vessels up to 15% in many cases. So that's something that everybody can do with things that exist and technologies that exist since the 80s. I mean, Boss Cap fins on the propellers and, Muse ducts and this kind of things and more expensive coatings. The payback period on all these investments is anywhere between 3 months and a year. So I don't really see how, the majority of the existing fleet is not running to make all these installations. It's not just the cost efficiency of these installations. It's also the improvement on the environment, and we have done it very successfully so far. So we have done it. We've been very pioneer. No matter whether you build new ships or you operate older vessels or what have you, there are always ways to become more fuel efficient and always ways to improve your carbon footprint. It's there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, as I mentioned before.
Thank you. And now I have a question for both Danae, for both Mrs. Bezantakou and Mrs. Ioannou. How big and how important is the role of women in shipping? Mrs. Ioannou.
Hi, a great question. I'm not the type of person that likes to say, that likes to put that much emphasis on gender. I'm very much focused on simply capabilities. What I do and try to do, and what I'm a big advocate for, because I benefited from this, was being in a company that has a structure that enables people generally. So if for women, that means that you have to take into account their family obligations, let's say, in order to put them on within a platform that will allow them to succeed, then that's what you have to do. So for example, historically, part of the problem really wasn't that women weren't interested in succeeding or weren't interested in the subject matter or weren't interested in shipping or whatever side of the service industry you were on, but it was really an inability, let's say, to balance a lot of the needs, both personal, family, and corporate. So for example, I had to go, when you're in the marine insurance industry, you have to travel a lot. You're traveling the whole world. So if you don't have a company that's going to support you in doing that, for example, for me, I was a single parent most of my career. So if I didn't have a company that enabled me, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's the importance really of looking at each and every person's, let's say, potential, and making sure that you maximize that potential, whatever that means in your company, okay? And so taking on then the specific aspect of women. So women obviously are important, just as important as men. That's the point. They're not more important. They are just as important as men. And so if you don't pay attention to their perspective, then you are ignoring the perspective potentially of half your target audience, of half your market. But not only that, even more importantly, you are ignoring the perspective probably of half your staff. So I don't know how any company could possibly think of progressing, of advancing, of moving forward if they don't pay attention to those needs and those details. In the marine insurance sector, on the P&I side, we have historically been a little bit behind the rest of the insurance industry, and even potentially the rest of the shipping industry in general. That's been changing. I'm very proud of where we are in the American Club. About half our staff and half our executives and about 45% of our managers are all are female. So we're very, very proud of that. And we've been kind of pioneers actually in the P&I industry. To give you an example, about 3 years ago, I was at the International Group's General Managers meeting for strategy, and there were 3 representatives of every single mutual there. So 39 people, and I was the only woman in 2019 as recent. And last year, I was very happy to be, I think, one of 5. So we're definitely making progress. And mark the words, there's more progress to come. So that's from me on the marine insurance side. Danae, I know, has a lot to say about this topic as well.
What I can say is that, first of all, we are in a panel that both the male representatives, they have powerful women in shipping. I mean, their wives are very important women in shipping. So what I can say is that once there is a will, there is a way. And it's what you really want. When I went to the US to represent Greece in the Hillary Clinton's program, Women in Leadership, many women asked why, to Mrs. Clinton, why you gathered us here, 100 women from to celebrate 100 years from the Day of Woman. And I was there on behalf of Greece, and many women asked why you called us to come here, and really we can do it. And Mrs. Clinton said to them, it's a matter of choice. It's not easy to happen. Yes, we have many roles. And the reason that I'm fighting about women's rights is because the women in other countries do not have the opportunity to be educated and to live a legal life. And this is why I'm fighting. As far as Greece is concerned, I'm very happy that I'm Greek, and I'm very happy that I am in a male-dominated world, that they are, the men around us, they're great in shipping, and I have never felt any problem. And there is capable women and capable men. Okay, so it's very important. What I have to say is that, yes, since last week, we're having our first woman president of the Union of Greek Shipowners, which is very, very important for the history of the Greek shipping. And of course, here, as General Secretary of Propeller, that I really admire the work of Propeller. And we know with our president, Kostis Fragoulis, that he's doing a great job with all of us. I have to say also that Vista Greece is also doing a great job in empowering women in shipping. And last but not least, we have to become role models for our kids, for the schools. I'm speaking in the schools more than 8 years, and I'm seeing that when you speak to these young people, they don't see if you are a woman or a man. They see if you really love what you are doing. So what I can say is that we have many women on board, we have captains, we have women in the offices, we have all the kind of. It's a matter of what your heart wants. You want to be a woman in shipping, you can. You want to be a woman in NASA, you can. You want to be a man doing nothing, you can. You can do whatever you want, just to be happy of what you're doing. This is what I believe.
Well, Mr. Timagenis, I'm coming to you now because I want to ask you to explain to us a little more about the Propeller Club. What is exactly that is doing in every day regarding the relations between the United States and Greece. You explained this to us in the beginning, but I want for you to elaborate a little more about that.
Sure, absolutely. As we said every day, but for the past more than 85 years, it has been a quite active club. I have to say that over the past 10 years, the club has become increasingly active in more and more fields. Now, a few examples of day-to-day activities. Obviously, we're all volunteers, so we have our daily jobs. We can only devote a limited amount of time. But since the Propeller Club is quite active, we do ensure to have several events, such as members' days with the speeches on various topics. There are occasions where there have been instances with vessels of members of the shipping community, of the ship-owning companies, which had faced issues with the U.S. Coast Guard, and to the extent possible, our president was able to speak and disentangle a potential situation. This happens. occasionally, but this is not the main focus of the Propeller Club. As we explained earlier, an important ceremony or main event is the AMBER Award ceremony, which is co-hosted by the Propeller Club, but organized mainly by the U.S. Coast Guard, in a way encouraging ship-owning companies to participate in this program, which assists in saving lives at seas. In our fundraising context, we collect a significant amount of funds, and a large portion of these are distributed either for scholarships or for donations, whether this has to do with a donation for charitable purposes, like a hospital or other charitable purposes that our board selects and a specific committee designed for the select, or scholarships, usually for students that want to study in a maritime sector, whether it has to do a Masters of Laws in Maritime Law, which has a great program, is organized by the Athens Law School on Maritime Law, and the Propeller Club offers 2 scholarships for this every year, or programs that have to do, like ALBA, for instance, offer a Master in Shipping, other programs, and we are now expanding our scholarship program to various other fields connected to shipping in order to encourage young people to be involved in shipping quite from the beginning, not because they had a parent who was a captain or who was connected somehow to shipping, but because they need to realize that this is a great field where they can have a job which pays well, which they can have a career that can evolve, and which is an industry that has been there for many, many decades, booming, and probably the only field where we can proudly say that Greece is a champion, continuously a champion. Why not for the Greeks to be involved in this? The same way they say, I want to be involved in tourism industry, for them to say, why not actually, as a student, decide to devote whichever field I select, but in this particular maritime world. I hope this kind of explained a little bit more about what we do as the Propeller Club.
Yes, thank you. Now, Mr. Tsantanis, you are listed, your company is listed in NASDAQ since 2008. How crucial was that for your company? And is it crucial for other shipping companies also to make that happen?
Well, yes. I mean, it has been very crucial for Seanergy to be part of the U.S. capital markets. We have successfully raised a significant amount of capital, as I mentioned before, more than $200 million that have been important for the company's survival in bad markets, but also when we grew the fleet by 70% the last couple of years, we used the majority of this equity capital to buy ships and at the same time reduce our debt. So we use this equity capital very, very successfully for the growth of the company and the deleveraging of our balance sheet. For me, being listed in a stock exchange, any stock exchange, not just the US capital markets, it's a matter of choice and whether it fits certain particular companies or not. I mean, let's not forget that being public is actually another form of equity funding for the company. So instead of raising equity from other sources, you just raise public equity through the capital markets. So you have to think whether that's suitable for any company at the end of the day or not. I mean, some companies they go well with that, and some other companies they don't. So for us, it has been extremely important and extremely crucial. As far as the choice of the US capital markets, I must say that there's no other capital center in the world that can compare to New York and the US in particular. We have tried from time to time personally through other capacities, try tapping either the Greek capital markets or the Far Eastern capital markets, but nothing works so well and so efficiently, and there's no such thing as the depth of capital in the US for the shipping industry. So I cannot really find a better alternative than the US capital markets so far in my career.
Can I ask?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Tsantanis, which is quite right. If we were to say we have about 1,500 active ship management companies based in Athens, Piraeus, generally broader center of Greece, about only 20 or 30 of them are listed publicly. So we are talking about an elite group of companies that are listed in the capital markets. Of course, there are very important privately held companies which have not chosen the path of capital markets. However, what is important is a lot of companies did grow through the capital markets. Some made it, some not. Usually, even the largest Greek shipping listed companies quite small compared to other publicly listed companies in the US. Yet, it is an impressive example of how Greeks have been able to succeed in this field. And especially in US capital markets, we had cases where clients started at the alternative investment market in London, in AIM, or the NOTC, the alternative market in Oslo, or the main market of Oslo. The US has proven to be the ideal platform for those companies that did want to grow through the capital market. It has obliged these companies to have an increased number of expensive personnel to be able to maintain the corporate governance level that is required for a publicly listed company, but it has given them an array of options that the privately held shipping company could never have at bad or good times. And interestingly enough, although in the Athens Stock Exchange, which could have been a good host or platform in the early 2000s for such companies, at that time it was quite unusual for a shipping company, or it was not necessarily well taken to tap into the Greek capital markets. And therefore, the Greek ship owners were adaptable to move to the US capital markets. Funnily enough, the past 2 years, we have seen publicly listed companies in the US tap into the Greek corporate bond markets, but the Athens Stock Exchange has been welcoming such issuers because they're well established and well organized in the US capital market. So they want what we call like prime issuers to be able to issue bonds in the Greek capital market, the Athens Stock Exchange traded here. So we have, for the first time over the past literally year and a half, 3 examples of companies listed in the US that issued also through a subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary, bond and raised financing through the Greek capital markets in the Athens Stock Exchange. So this is a very interesting synergy of these 2 markets, but it is, I would say, an exception to the general rule that Mr. Tsantanis very well explained.
I don't know, Mrs. Ioannou or Mrs. Bezantakou, if you want to comment on that. We have run out of time. We're 17 minutes after 5.
No, I will leave the experts to their subject matters.
It's also very important that in shipping we know who is the expert, and this does not have a gender.
Well, I can say that that's very important in all the fields, not only in shipping. I want to thank you very much for having this discussion. Thank you so much, and for letting us see how shipping works and how it can be so fruitful for Greece, and not only, and for the relations between the United States and Greece. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you too. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.